I suspect there's almost no country in Europe, maybe the Baltics and Poland and a few others, that will go to 5%. So in a year when it doesn't happen, Trump will be able to say, NATO is just as worthless as I always said it was, I'm getting out. In other words, Trump has moved the spending goalpost now so that more European NATO members are hitting the 2% target, and he's doing it because he sees it as a route for pulling the US out of the alliance. There's only one potential saving grace for NATO's European members. The US Congress stands as the guardrail that keeps America in the coalition. Any decision to leave has to first pass through Congress before it can be made a reality. Former US President Joe Biden signed that requirement into law as part of the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, which may have been Biden's subtle way of preparing for the possibility of a Trump presidency. The problem is that the law isn't airtight. This is not open and shut, claims Brookings Institution scholar and senior editor of Lawfare Scott Anderson. This is about Congress telling you that you can't do this, and if you ignore Congress, you're going to have to fight us in the courts over it, he says. Therein lies the problem. For the issue to be litigated, Anderson claims, there needs to be someone with standing to sue. That someone could be Congress, only it's not clear if the Republicans in Congress would be willing to launch a lawsuit against their own elected president. So Zelensky is right to worry about NATO no longer having the US as a partner. Trump has threatened withdrawal in the past. He's moving the spending goalposts to a level that may be unreachable for many of the alliance's members. Plus, the laws in place to force congressional approval of a withdrawal aren't as solid as they need to be. But what about Putin? With NATO weakened by a US withdrawal, would he really set his sights on the rest of Europe? Again, it's a possibility. Suggestions that Putin's appetite for expansion may extend beyond Ukraine have existed since at least February 2023. That's when RAND published an article where it claimed that Putin's next goal may be to attack other post-Soviet neighbors who were previously part of Russia's empire. And Putin has a history in that respect. He invaded Georgia in 2008 soon after then Prime Minister Putin had told former US President George W. Bush that Ukraine is not even a country. Of course, Putin invaded Crimea in 2014, following that up with his special military operation against Ukraine in 2022. In the same year, he also claimed that Kazakhs never had statehood, but perhaps his most worrying claim came in 2016. Russia's president said that his country's border had no end. In May 2024, Philip Reeves of NPR's Morning Edition noted that many in Estonia fear Putin could target them next if he's victorious in Ukraine. Putin could seek to test NATO and Article 5 by entering the Baltics despite the risk of triggering nuclear war, claimed Reeves, noting that Estonians were protesting Putin's war in Ukraine outside the Russian embassy in Estonia's Tallinn at the time. It's also notable that about a quarter of Estonia's population are ethnic Russians, which could serve as ammunition for a future Putin claim that Estonia should be part of his country. The Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies also notes that Putin may be so hell-bent on expansion that he would invade European NATO nations even if the US remains part of the alliance. No one knows what Putin would do next if he were emboldened by a victory against Ukraine. And although analysts downplay the possibility of Putin attacking a Baltic state such as Estonia, Putin has surprised the world before. He did so when he invaded Ukraine. Worse yet, according to the Institute, Putin both dislikes NATO and doesn't fear an attack from the alliance. He's already engaged in hybrid warfare with many NATO countries, including using disinformation campaigns, sabotage, and cyber attacks to get his way. Would he go a step further and use military force?